All right, back at it Friday, May 25th. Sports Bit Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, SBRpicks.com. I'm at Real Sports Bit. He's at Teddy_covers. Game 6 tonight. Cavs at home against the Celtics, laying 7. And we'll touch on Game 6 as well with the Rockets and the Warriors. Team previews continue. Finish out the NFC North with the Steelers. Could be the team to beat in the AFC. Who knows? We'll kick around that, turn on the shot clock as well. Games of the year released yesterday, college football at the South Point, over 60 games. They took over $100,000 in bets. We'll go over that coming up. I can't believe it. The Rockets win again, but it's how they won the game. 13 of 43 from 3. Harden was 5 of 21. Harden and Paul couldn't do anything in the first half. The supporting cast played well. Eric Gordon made some big threes. And another low-scoring game, well under the total. Rockets lead the series 3-2. Adjusted series price, Golden State still favored. They're laying 10.5 in Game 6. And the bad news with Chris Paul with the hammy, who knows his status for Game 6? And if they even play him, because you want him 100% or close to for Game 7 Monday night.
And remember, there's no rest for the weary for either one of these squads. It's one game, 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. So it's not like Chris Paul's going to get any extra time in between now and tip-off on Saturday or tip-off on Monday, should this series go to 7 games. But it was almost like a replay. Game 4 had all the runs. Game 5, the similar defensive struggle feel. The pace wasn't there. The offensive execution wasn't there. And look, you talked about Houston winning the game despite more than their fair share of offensive miscues. I mean, Golden State's second straight game where they lost a turnover battle, second straight game where they've been outshot from three-point range, second straight game where they were outshot from the free throw line. Hard to win close games when you're losing those categories. And of course, Golden State, they had ample chances to take over that game in the fourth quarter. They just didn't hit any shots. And let's give the Rockets some credit for taking Golden State completely out of their offensive game plan. You watch the Warriors the last 2 fourth quarters, not a recognizable team from the squad that we saw for most of the regular season.
And they're essentially playing 4-on-5 on offense because Bell or Looney can't score. Now, also, you figure to get Iguodala back in Game 6 as well. How about 17 points in the first quarter? That means the fourth quarter and the first quarter, they scored essentially 29 points and a half because they had 12 points in the fourth quarter of Game 4, and they closed out with 22 points in the fourth quarter last night. It'd be nice if Curry and Durant could actually take a shot with the game on the line. You know, Thompson throwing up an air ball. I mean, come on, draw something up here.
Well, the shot that made me nuts was Quinn Cook. You know, when you're down by 2 and you're jacking up a 3 in the closing seconds, or not even in the closing seconds at that point, there was still like 30 seconds left. He hits a 3 there. Anybody hits a 3 there. It's a whole different home stretch of that ball game. Cook missed the shot, and I'm telling you, you're Mike D'Antoni. Yeah, I'll Cook. You can take all those shots you want, but look, Curry missed a layup. Durant missed. It wasn't like Cook was the only guy. Bottom line is, right now, Warriors offense is broken. That's going to be a problem considering they're laying 10.5 in game number 6. But you talked about the Chris Paul injury. Let me get the quote from Mike D'Antoni. He's got to go in for an MRI today. He said his hamstring was, quote, really sore and that he had felt, quote, a twinge after landing on a jumper. D'Antoni's quote, "We'll see. Obviously, you saw him limp off and he's a tough guy. Well, his spirits aren't great for sure. He's worried and all that." From early indications, certainly the betting market doesn't sound particularly optimistic about Chris Paul being anywhere near 100% on Saturday, if he plays at all.
Think about it, Game 7. You get Iguodala back. Paul's maybe 60%, and Harden's missed 20 straight three-pointers. Yikes. How about that scenario in Game 7? Bad for the books. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati over 8.5 up to 9. 5-4 final, and the Angels $1.10 up to 135. Beat Toronto 8-1, 16-5 on the road for the Angels.
Yeah, best in the league. I mean, the Blue Jays finished that 7-game homestand 1-6. They're outscored 43-22 by Oakland and LA. This is a Toronto team that overachieved early. They've certainly come back to earth. And you talk about the Pirates getting smacked around yesterday and all that over money. They're betting against Nova. I mean, Nova in May, 0-4 with a 7.60 ERA in 5 May starts. Not convinced he's going to be a whole lot better when June rolls around.
Orioles $1.30 up to 150. Beat the White Sox on the road. A's $1.10 up to 130. They beat Seattle. King Felix gave up 4 runs in the first. His first inning ERA is 12. And the A's playing good ball and a good home team. And the Royals plus 125 went off the favorite. $1.20 at Texas. They won 8-2. Only the second win for the Royals when Duffy starts.
Yeah, they're few and far between. Although, if you've been fading Duffy game after game after game, all right, yeah, you're not going to win every one of them. You're reasonable to give one back in that one. But let's talk King Felix, and let's talk the will they, won't they score in the first inning prop that I know a lot of folks out there like to bet.
Oh.
You talked about the 4 runs he gave up in the first yesterday. 12.27 ERA in the first inning for Seattle. 4.11 ERA after the first. Not like he's been great, but the first inning struggles for King Felix. You're betting that will they, won't score? Will they, won't they score in the first inning prop? When King Felix is in, you might want to bet the yes on that one. It's been fairly profitable so far this season.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Monday was games of the week 1 lines. Here's games of the year at the South Point Sunday. They have win totals for every college team. Guy who runs the book, Chris Andrews, said he had Texas underrated. He was too high on Notre Dame. Remember the week 1 line, they had Notre Dame a 7-point home favorite at Michigan. Michigan's now the favorite on week 1. He also said he was too high on underrated, on Oregon and Stanford, and might be the case with a couple other teams, but they were betting Texas nonstop, Teddy. How about the game against Oklahoma that opened 12 and now it's 6.5, 6?
Yeah, and again, I apologize for not graphicing these up. It's not easy to get a good picture of all the games of the year on one sheet that you guys can read it. Obviously, you can find these numbers online. You can find them right here at sportsbookreview.com. Certainly widely posted and widely available because nobody else in Vegas has done it yet. We give the South Point all kinds of credit for being first to market with so many of these college football numbers. And you talked about the hot teams, Texas Longhorns. You talked about the Oklahoma game where they opened a 12-point dog. Now they're only a 6-point dog. The game against USC, they opened as dogs. Now they're -3 in that game. Chris Andrews, quote, I'd call that a pretty big move. I must have had Texas, Stanford, and Oregon underrated every game involving those teams. Drew action. One more quote from Chris Andrews. And it's worth noting when you talk about these very first line moves, all right, where this is the brain trust from the South Point putting up numbers. And these are the real wise guys, the guys that are making their living betting college football, coming after these numbers. Chris Andrews, quote, with college football, you have some very dedicated clientele. They really like to get in and crunch numbers, and some of these guys do pretty damn well. I definitely have a lot of respect for the guys who played early money, worth paying attention to. And as you mentioned, Pauly, even with $1,000 betting limits, not going nuts on these openers, $1,000 a pop, more than $100,000 in college football action this week. And the win totals are going to attract as much attention as anything. That I would anticipate enormous.
Alabama opened 7 against Auburn, Ohio State 9 against Michigan, Notre Dame opened a 1-point favorite at USC, November 24th. And several of these games, Oregon with Herbert. Herbert's a terrific quarterback, and they averaged a ton of points before he got injured. They were bet up from 1-3 at Washington State. And at home against Washington opened 10. That was bet down to 7 and some other marquee games. And a lot of people high on West Virginia. But they took money against Tennessee. They opened a 3-point dog at Texas Tech. They're now favored as they get Greer back. Ohio State also bet up from 6 to 8.5 at Michigan State. Some good matchups there. And Oregon also took money from 9 up to 13 at home against Arizona State. So a lot of great matchups they put up there and some intriguing. How about week 2? Boise goes to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. Week 2, Boise goes to Oklahoma State. Houston plays Texas Tech. LSU plays Auburn and the USC-Texas game. Ohio State also plays TCU in Arlington. Some great games the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the funnest things about college football and looking at these games of the year lines is that you get to look forward to all of these great games. You're like, oh, it's what we got in week 1. It's what we got in week 2. Oh, look at this November matchup. That's the beauty of college football. An NFL weekend, you might get 3 or 4 marquee matchups. College football, not unusual to have games you want to watch from 9 in the morning till pretty close to midnight, just about every Saturday. Yep.
Yep. And they did a great job with the week 1 lines too. Bama 20, from 20 up to 25 and a half. And then you got the 2 marquee games Sunday, September 2nd. Miami takes on LSU in Arlington, and Virginia Tech at Florida State on Labor Day. Florida State open pick, bet up to 4. All right. Any questions? What got anything question? You want me to pause here? Any questions?
Yeah, well, let's take a look what we got out in the we got Grabaka Max saying hi, saying they're stepping up on defense. Andy Miranda, Houston offense is 5 guys standing at the 3-point line, and then Harden tries to take his guy to the hoop. Incredible that they are up in this series. Yet they are, and that's, in my mind, certainly a lot to do with Golden State and their inability to find it. I mean, how do you judge the Rockets being up 3-2 in this series? And do you think they can close it out, Pauly?
That's good. I got to see the health of Paul, number 1. Number 2, as I said before the series, it would come down to the supporting cast, and they should shoot 45 threes a game. That should have been a blowout last night. They got wide open looks. Those were wide open threes they got. They just weren't going in. And with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, Golden State had 10 points. This is not something new, though. This was the number 6th ranked defense in the league. So you heard that buffoon, Chris Webber, yesterday talk about, I can't believe it. It's late in the game, and the Rockets don't have any fast break points, and they're usually high. No, they're not. They slow it down. They were at the bottom and near the bottom of the pace in the playoffs. They were in the middle of the pack in the regular season. This is a completely different team and D'Antoni team where they play defense and they slow it down, and it's ISO ball. So everything you think you know about this Houston team going in, you've been completely wrong. And you know, the bozos too, that Bill guy saying the supporting cast stinks and the Warriors were going to sweep them after game 1. Don't be like Charles Barkley. You cannot be a sports bettor and be a prisoner of the moment. You're going to go broke. Look what's going on in the Eastern Conference, and look what's going on in this conference too. I mean, how many times are you going to listen to the talking head saying it's all over, this is going to be a sweep? And Barkley has said the series is over twice, and now the Rockets could win this damn thing in 6 or 7.
That's why they're watching Sportsbet and not watching, look, the mainstream stuff is good for mainstream fans. If you want to win money betting sports, you better get good sports information. That's what we try to do here every single day.
Well, listen, that's rule number 1. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't overreact to the last thing you saw. That's rule number 1 when you're betting sports.
Rule number 1 and rule number 2 with sports. Seahawks strike. He's close to getting an internship at Swish Analytics as a data analyst. Let's root for Seahawks strike. Good luck getting that internship, buddy. And Rostradamus, Draymond, oy vey. I mean, there were so many screw-ups for the Rockets in the final minute last night. Draymond screw up at the end. It almost gets overlooked, even though that obviously could have provided the game winner had he not tripped over his own 2 freaking feet. I ask you what I have last night. Yes, I had the Warriors last night. Not a good result for my pocket.
Yeah, play of the day loser there. That was surprising how this has played out, at least offensive standpoint with Golden State. Celtics, Cavs. Here we go. Game 6 tonight. You know, everything we've talked about here with the Celtics. 10-0 straight up in ATS at home. 1-6 straight up on the road. 7-202 the total. Some shops moving down to 6.5. There was a $100,000 bet last night on the Celtics at the South Point for what that's worth. They sit in your top sports book. 22 years online. Sign up, deposit, and win. LeBron in an elimination game. Staggering. This streak's on the line, too. He's made it to the finals 7 years in a row, so that's at risk tonight. And he's 20-4 ATS in games which he started a series down 0-2, 11-0 ATS at home in the Eastern Conference games. And going back the last few years, in elimination games, he's averaging like 36, 12, and 9. It's ridiculous the number he's putting up in elimination games. But the Cavs are at home, so you know the supporting cast will at least show up, as they have been awful on the road in this series.
No, I don't know if they've been great at home either. They've been better, but great is certainly not, it's been a problem for everyone on Cleveland not named LeBron James. I want to start talking about that 1-6 straight up, 2-5 ATS mark on the road in the playoffs. All right. And that's the mainstream narrative. Celtics every home game, they win every home game. Celtics lose every road game. And that's the way it's always going to be. In my mind, when you think about Boston's postseason, they had game 4 at Milwaukee. They were right in that game, lost it by a bucket. They had, game 3 in Philly, where they were down 20 and rallied from behind to win in straight up fashion. They had game 4 in Cleveland, where again, they didn't cover the number. They didn't win the game, Boston wasn't a wrong side in that ballgame. They missed a bunch of bunnies. It was one of those games, but it wasn't like the Celtics weren't the same Celtics that we've seen at home. Their shot selection has been a little bit better at home. Their offensive execution has been a little bit better at home. But I don't look at the Celtics, a team that won all year away from home, as a team that, well, they're so young they can't win on the road in the playoffs. We've seen them do it, and we've seen them come close. If you're making a case for Cleveland, and you can, the case in my mind should not be based on Boston can't win road games. Boston can win road games. They certainly have been competitive in a lot of these games in the highway, even here in the postseason.
Well, that Milwaukee game you brought up, they were down 22 in the third quarter. Again, the supporting cast hasn't played well on the road. Here's what I like. They got the win by double digits in Game 5, and Rozier was 3 of 15, and Brown struggled shooting as well. And now Tatum's starting to be he's been aggressive. We know he can shoot. He's been attacking the basket as well. And make no mistake about it, he's not the only guy. LeBron's tired. You see that. He's got the hand on his hips. He's tugging on his shorts. This guy's tired. And the fact that he has to carry this team and he's got no one to pass to or help out in road games so far, that's a big deal. So we'll see if, but again, blowout in Game 3, and then get off to a good start, though. Game 4, they're down 16 in the first quarter, and then they were right there and outplayed the Cavs the rest of the way. But you can't fall in a hole like that. And how do they officiate the game? Well, they call the ticky-tack stuff like they did in Game 4 because Morris and Brown were in foul trouble. LeBron is unguardable if they're going to call the small change stuff.
No question. But it was interesting to see Brad Stevens make the adjustment to his starting lineup, putting Baines in there for Marcus Morris and then bringing Morris off the bench. And that was certainly a winning move and a right move to go big on Cleveland. Whether that works again or whether they do it again tonight is another question entirely. And it's worth noting, the Celtics defense so good. It was the third worst offensive game of the playoffs for Cleveland, but it wasn't even like Boston played particularly well. Their effective field goal percentage 36.5%, 10th worst by a winning team in a conference final game since 1984. So the Celtics are here now with the chance to close out Cleveland because their defense has been there. And sure, we know what LeBron has been. LeBron's been to 7 straight finals. LeBron in these elimination games or potential elimination games has been basically epic on a pretty consistent basis. And, Ty Lue's expecting more of the same. Quote, if I had to pick one guy and choose one guy to prevail, it would be LeBron. I know he'll be great come tomorrow. Obviously, this is a quote from yesterday. Again, 10-3 straight up when facing elimination since 2012 for LeBron's teams. But it's not just winning this game. They got to win it by margin, Paul.
I'm concerned about that, and I'm concerned about Lue as well, who admitted, why didn't Korver get more minutes in Game 5? I got lost in my rotation, and I got confused because Stevens didn't put Olajay in there. Guy's averaging 2 points in the playoffs. Who cares? As Amin Al-Hassan says, he's their, 8th or 9th best player, and Korver has been their 3rd or 4th best player in the playoffs? That troubling comments there, that he got lost, was the quote why Korver didn't get more minutes in Game 5 because of what Stevens did or didn't do with Olajay. That was great. And we'll see what Kevin Love shows up as well. But it's staggering. It's astonishing that Hill, Thompson, and Smith completely disappear on the road, and they've been playing well at times at home.
But when we're trying to project forward, in my mind, when you're handicapping an NBA playoff series, as the series progresses, particularly games 5 and 6, I found the home court edge isn't quite as great as perhaps it was earlier in the season, or earlier in the series, I should say. And that's certainly the way I'm leaning tonight. I'm not convinced the Cavs, just because they're playing at home. It's been a hell of a run for Cleveland. It's been a hell of a run for LeBron. 7 straight finals. I wouldn't be shocked if that ends tonight.
All right, that'd be something. Who had Celtics Rockets in the finals? My God, which that will add to the nut story at the Golden Nugget locally, because Tillman Fertitta, owner of the Rockets, also owns the Golden Nuggets. If the Rockets beat the Warriors, then whoever wins the East is crowned the champion before the series starts, because they can't take bets on the Rockets, and you have to have a champion. How about that story? And how about the fact that NBA Finals, you can't take one bet on the thing as well. All right, here we go. AFC North, finishing out with the Steelers. Last year, they were 13-3 straight up, 7-9 ATS. 10-5-1 to the under. They went over last year with their win total, and this year they are 10.5. Doable schedule, and maybe the team to beat in the AFC. I know it didn't work out in the playoffs as they got thumped at home by Jacksonville, but a lot to like here with that offense, although I think you're a little bit concerned about the defense here. I got the turnover battle as well. They were +2 in the turnover margin, middle of the pack.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, Pittsburgh's season last year was very similar to Pittsburgh's season in recent years. They've made the playoffs each of the last 4 years. They've made the playoffs 8 of the last 11 seasons when Mike Tomlin's been head coach. I know there's a lot of Tomlin hate out there. It seems like there's a lot of Tomlin hate out there. 8 of 11 seasons he's been there, they made the postseason. Most NFL teams would be very happy with that. And they're looking at compared to the other teams in their division. During that time, Ravens and Bengals been in the postseason 6 times. The Browns, of course, have been in the postseason once since returning to the NFL. That came back in 2002. They're 17 wins better than the Ravens over the last 10 years. 11 years, I'm sorry. During the Tomlin era. There's something to be said for that. I mean, they haven't had the level of postseason success that Steelers fans have come to covet, I guess, come to expect. And while New England's gone on to all these Super Bowls, Pittsburgh's been there a handful of times during this span, but they haven't been the team out of the AFC like the Patriots have. So what are we seeing from the offseason? Fairly quiet for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They made some moves on the defensive side of the football, though. That's what they really wanted to shore up coming in the offseason.
I like what they did in the draft. They took Edmonds. They took Rudolph from Oklahoma State. They also grabbed Washington, the wide receiver. I think he could be a stud, and I think it's addition by subtraction, trading Bryant to the Raiders, as he liked to chirp and talk and became a distraction too on and off the field for the Steelers as well. So I think Washington can be a stud. And you might get how am I going to say this? Maybe a more energized or motivated Roethlisberger now that he has Rudolph in there, maybe to push him after all that talk about I might retire and I don't know if what I have left. That could be big too as they take a quarterback. Roethlisberger didn't like that, but still now it appears he's going to work with them and try to help him out. But that could help out Roethlisberger as well too. But you got to love that offense with the weapons they have. Best wide receiver and maybe one of the best, certainly the best running back or one of the best with Bell.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you look at the skill position talent for Pittsburgh, this team's built to score points as long as the offensive line stays healthy. One of the issues they've had in recent seasons is keeping that time. It is the starters are top tier for Pittsburgh on the OL. Though once you look at the depth problems, once starters gets hurt, it's not pretty for Pittsburgh behind that starting 5 on the offensive line. But if Big Ben can stand and if Big Ben is motivated, because you're right, last year there were times he didn't look fully engaged. One would think this offense is built to score points. And again, defensively, you talked about the addition of the number 1 pick Terrell Edmonds, the kid out of Virginia Tech. He's a playmaker, and they got they got nothing from their safeties last year when it came to playmaking ability. So to see Edmonds on the one side, see the free agent pickup of Morgan Burnett on the other side, and John Bostic, who's look, he's no Ryan Shazier, but at least he's someone that can come in and perhaps fill some of that role for a guy that Pittsburgh really missed once he got hurt. And, of course, a guy who's not likely to be back anytime soon.
Schedule. AFC West, NFC South, 2 extra games. Again, Patriots at home and at Jacksonville. I like it over, Teddy. It's a doable schedule. They should be favored in 7 of their first 8 games. You get the Patriots at home, which could decide home field in the AFC. Gets tough later in the season at Jacksonville, at Denver, Chargers at home, and then at Oakland with that Patriots. But they should be able to get off to a 6-1 start when you look at the schedule.
Sure, but the back half of that campaign is tough. Look at that. You highlighted a couple of it, but look at Baltimore, Carolina, at Jacksonville, at Denver, Chargers, at Oakland, New England, at New Orleans. That's a rough stretch. They better get off to a hot start. I'll put it that way for Pittsburgh. And I know the prevailing wisdom. Look, this team is on, you can see it on the schedule right there. 8 o'clock, all the night games. What do we got? 5 night games for Pittsburgh. And then 3 more, 4 o'clock national TV starts. This team's on TV all over the place. The league wants Pittsburgh to be a competitive squad. They're one of the marquee franchises. I'm certainly not looking for a Steelers collapse this season, but over 10.5, I'm a little bit reluctant to go there, Pauly. Just not ready with the Steelers. They look to me like about a 10-win team.
All right, I like the over, and I think they win the division again. I don't care much for Baltimore, so that's I think maybe the team to beat in the AFC. Bortles has got to prove it to me again. Great job last year, but certainly they won because of their defense. Time to turn on the shot clock. Fire it up. Chris Paul, will he or won't he Saturday night? How much will the hammy affect the Rockets-Warriors series? You start.
All right, let's go with Chris Paul. This is a legacy series for Chris Paul, period. When we look at Chris Paul right now, he will go down in history. I don't even know it's Karl Malone, as a guy, the Hall of Famer who just didn't have enough talent around him to win the title. I think Chris Paul would be looked at more negatively than that when you give the state of his career and how little he's done in the postseason. So here's his chance. Here's the best team he's been on. They have a 3-2 series lead. And the hammy hurts. Is Chris Paul going to play? Is he going to be effective? My money's on the no, because that's what we've seen from Chris Paul throughout his career. The guy has never won anywhere. I don't trust him here, and I think it affects his legacy, whether he play. If Chris Paul comes in and has one of these monster games where he puts up 30 and he's hanging on one leg and doing crazy stuff, we'll look at Chris Paul very differently on Monday than we do today. I don't see Chris Paul doing that. And that, to me,
I think we're talking
about him overall.
Well, you're going long here, buddy. You're pulling a meat. You're really going long. I think we're talking about this game on Monday because I don't think he'll play much and he won't be effective in Game 6, and we'll have a Game 7. But he was great in the second half. But if he's hobbled, maybe it's an Isaiah Thomas with the ankle against the Lakers in the finals. If he's not effective, they can't win this series because Harden has disappeared. 5 of 21 and then missing 20 straight threes. My God, I mean, how many shots can Ariza and Gordon make? And Ariza didn't make much in the last couple games. It was all Gordon off the bench. Plus, the Rockets are only playing 7 guys to begin with. So if he's not even close to 100%, it's Golden State in 7. Money time, play of the day. Back to the Celtics and Cavs. It's Barkley always says it. It's one thing he gets right. The supporting cast and others always play better at home. That's been the case in this series. 709, 710. Celtics, Cavs over 202. 201.5's available. Cavs also trying to go up tempo in some of these games at home and do or die. Plus, LeBron has been awesome in elimination games going back to 2015, 36, 12, and 9, whatever the hell it is. Let's go over the total. Cavs win, goes over, and we also have a Game 7 in this series on Sunday night. Very good. We will do a show Monday. We got the Stanley Cup live from Vegas, 5 o'clock Pacific.
Yeah.
Nothing like hockey in 95-degree weather. But maybe the best story ever in American sports is the Knights try to win the Stanley Cup. Its expansion team, we'll touch on that. And we could have a Game 7 to recap and a Game 7 preview coming up. We'll talk to you Monday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com. Have a safe weekend. Thanks for watching.